everyone. Welcome to Government Contractor Chat. We are going to get started now. Please kindly mute yourselves and go off camera until the Q&A portion. I am Lindsay Riegelsberger, Director of Operations and Business Development for Streamline Government Contracts. Streamline helps small to mid-sized government contractors who seek experienced, effective support with contract management that reduces risks, increases profits, and enhances reputations. We do this by negotiating teaming agreements, subcontracts, preparing estimates of completion when necessary, and speaking to government contracting officers in their own language. We are the proud organizers of Government Contractor Chat, and we thank you for joining us today. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker now. Ben Madden, principal at HR Action, has nearly 2 decades of experience in HR with a wide range of industries, including retail, government contracting, IT startups, and professional services organizations. Prior to founding HR Action, Ben spent the last 12 years as the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at the Ambit Group, a large GovCon system integrator, until its acquisition in 2022. During his time at Ambit, Ben helped oversee 5 times growth in staff and supported integration of 2 acquisitions and the sale of DMI, while leading the HR department 2 times to the Best Places to Work award from the Washington Post. Over the last 5 years, Mr. Madden has also served on the Nova SHRM board, the second largest SHRM local chapter in the state of Virginia, including 2 terms as the president. Let's welcome Ben Madden.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I appreciate it. Again, we're going to talk today about how and what the employee lifecycle is and where we see breaks, especially for us in government contracting. We have a very unique world in which we live in terms of how and what it means to sort of serve in 2 different industries. But just a quick agenda, an intro, and then I'm going to dive right into each of the areas of the talent lifecycle. So a little bit about me. Lindsay already covered some of this, but I am the owner of HR Action LLC. My GovCon career sort of focused highlights. As Lindsay mentioned, I was the SVP of HR at the Ambit Group. When I started, we're at 50 employees. By the time that we sold, give or take, we're up to about 250 employees. We integrated 2 acquisitions, one that was just a contract buy, one of which was a full doubling of the organization. And then we're sold to DMI towards the end of 2022. Helped really with that integration and the cultural alignment, both with the buy side acquisitions as well as the sell. We did win Best Places to Work twice while at Ambit. Again, which is a difficult thing to do. That is all employee survey-based data and driving forward that way. And truly, I've handled every facet of the employee lifecycle, from talent acquisition and benefits management to engagement and talent development. So I like to think I know what I'm talking about, and like to think that I certainly can provide some insight for all of you on the call today. So now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the heart of the matter. So the employee lifecycle, this is putting all the time with everything your company is putting out in the world. So, folks are looking to find new employment opportunities. People are looking to drive all of this. So we start with the idea of candidate attraction. And, this is anything that you put out. So this is wins and loss announcements, your staff at events talking about your organization, anything you're posting in social media. All of these things are helping to drive your staff forward and into candidates to look at your company and understand what it is that you offer. We move into recruitment, and this is sort of the true identifying candidates for roles and even building a bench of candidates. I know there's some folks on here who specialize just in recruiting, and so it is truly its own unique beast of how and what to identify candidates. Once you bring them into the organization, you need to onboard them and really start to inculcate them into your organization's vision, mission, values. Developing them, it's a critical step, making sure that your folks are able to grow and continue to succeed. And then building them for current needs and future needs. Retention is what makes them stay. And then lastly, separation. And this is also just as key. So now that I've sort of gone through a baseline of what the life cycle is, it's important for us in GovCon to understand that we have breakdowns in the stages. We can see issues with contract performance, with compliance, with revenue loss, even losing your competitive advantage. For the most part, we are not producing widgets, but it's truly knowledge capital. So if we see struggles within our talent, we'll see overall product suffering as a result. So moving into attraction, and what I want to do is sort of highlight each of the areas, sort of what makes GovCon unique, some of the breakdowns, and then some solutions that you can hopefully start implementing quickly into your organization as a result of this. So with attraction, GovCon really does have unique skills and requirements for candidates to even be eligible. There are the idea of entry of duty, everything from your basic SF-89s to your high-level TS SCI with poly, et cetera, that can be automatic turn-off for candidates. There are even unique technical expertise, some of which are outdated, but the government still relies on to find folks in this. So in the small world of government contracting, people are often more wedded to the work that they're doing than the brand that is on their checks, and even more wedded to the agencies in which they work, which can cause a whole host of issues when it comes to attracting new folks to your organization. I also want to stress that the budgeting cycle makes hiring and strategic hiring decisions really difficult at times. Winning contracts and being able to bring on new staff and being able to know when you're going to need to surge hire and attract is difficult than in a lot of organizations, because having an idea to do in-depth forecasting and knowing that we are going to grow by X, Y, and Z is difficult in GovCon, even with realistic forecasts and P-wins to help plan the cycles. Losing a contract in a bid can really throw your organization for a loop when it comes to bringing in and trying to figure out how to attract and bring in talent. So with the breakdowns in attraction, talent shortages is continuing to drive forward some of these issues here. We are in competition with private sector for top talent, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. Our rates don't always support being able to keep up with the Googles, the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, and we continue to see top talent leaving GovCon to go to the private sector in large quickies. Employer branding. So as I just mentioned, very few industries really have this two fronts when it comes to branding. Candidates become attached to that mission and the agency, and the idea of badge switching is something that happens all the time. But it's really the folks who just want to be able to stay on those contracts for 5 to 7 years, go between recompetes. They believe in the work that they're doing, and it's just sort of an inconvenience when you have to bounce between organizations. So you're trying to continue to find folks who want to be able to walk into that type of work. And then lastly, we are still seeing a diversity and inclusion issues within GovCon. Bringing in diverse thought is critical for a lot of these programs. That's how we get new ideas into government. That's how we get new ideas into each of your organizations. They need more than just the same employees who bounce between contracts, and yet we struggle to see diverse talent people coming into GovCon. Nobody often wakes up and says, you know what I want to be as a government contractor. And so finding that next level of talent within Gen Alpha who want to shape and make government better is going to be really that advantage for all of the organizations to be able to crack into how best to bring people in. So how do we start breaking some of these? How do we start fixing some of these breakdowns? So implementing strategic branding. And I will stress, by no means am I a branding expert. I know that this group has had folks come in and talk about branding and all of that. So this is my HR perspective here. But talking about mission impact, using storytelling to drive home your organization's commitment to mission. How do your employees make that difference? That really starts to connect that mission focused employees who are looking to join your organization and what it is that you as an organization can drive forward. Really emphasizing career growth, finding ways to promote your employees who've been able to make moves from, the idea of a business analyst to a program manager, and how those pathways drive your employees is, it's certainly a critical way to ensure that employees can see themselves moving across the organization and a stable long-term contracts, and that you as a organization can manage some of these cliffs that we see when it comes to government contracting with the end of a contract and what happens. Innovative work environments. So again, we're seeing more and more as organizations come back into full-time employees into the office spaces and all of that. We need to bring in ways to have cutting edge technology and methodologies. Government still, unfortunately, has a lot of this stigma of being a lag when it comes to workplaces, when it comes to tech, and all of these things. So, do you have ways to show off that your office is designed for flexible working? Do you have an office, or can employees be anywhere? And some of these nuanced, innovative work environments can certainly drive new candidates to be interested in your organization solely because of what it is that you're able to show in all of that. Developing that strong online presence, push your mission, your vision, your values, all of those things, and making sure that you're living them at the same time. But use social media to share employee success stories, successes on projects, your culture. Drive folks to your social media because that way you are controlling your messaging. And then lastly, DE&I, emphasize your commitment to diversity, work-life balance, to education, to growth, to all of these things. But again, they cannot just be the idea of lip service. Next, find ways to leverage recruiting partnerships. So finding ways to tap into different groups of talent. Veteran talent is very much an aspect of the labor market that GovCon needs to continue to look towards. Working to help translate military resumes to GovCon provides a set of talent for folks who already understand this true on-mission focus. But trying to translate their experience in the military into GovCon speak, if you will, is a critical step that your organization needs to be willing to take. But looking even at military spouses and other folks who may not necessarily be top of mind for a lot of organizations. I was speaking at an ACT Act event last week and hearing stories of spouses who had to figure out how to handle career changes every several years. It was a challenge, but it also led to some of them finding GovCon because it really was a way to deal with the cyclical nature of contracts, to really be able to handle a lot of those changes, and be available because they knew how to move and be able to and flex. Additionally, make partnerships with universities. As I already said, and firmly believe, nobody sort of wakes up and wants to be a GovCon employee for their entire career, but finding ways to tap into talent from schools that specialize in key skills that you are going to need to help you bring in fresh talent, to help you bring in newer ideas and creative ideas that can be developed and grown, is another great way to find new talent and help attract them into your organization. Lastly, the idea of competitive benefits. So you see things that the private sector is using to attract talent. There are companies, and these are the companies you're competing with. So there are more and more tools that haven't made it quote unquote mainstream into GovCon that can show your commitment to things, like work-life balance and all of these things, lifestyle flexible spending accounts, parental leave benefits beyond disability and unpaid time off, emergency savings, and all sorts of things that are certainly going to allow you to be able to stand out from the crowd. So moving into recruitment, and again, we see unique challenges with GovCon every time you have to go out and recruit for things. The length of the hiring cycle is first and foremost one of the top issues that you see. You see delays all the time in release of RFPs, You look at things like Alliant 3, which I know is a BPA, but is still not fully out yet and has been on the record for who knows how long in terms of it's coming, this work is all coming. Organizations do all of this planning, and then to see things slide to the right really can mess up uh, the ability for your organization to have these recruiting needs at the right time. Planning at the beginning of the fiscal year based on staff wins, on PWin, and all of that expected release dates. But if there's delays, everything gets slowed down. Everything comes to a screeching halt. The length that it takes to clearance processes. So, sometimes you gotta wait for the government to clear your folks. It can be relatively painless, or it can drag on. I have seen folks taking anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to 6 to 12 months to get cleared. And with the unpredictability of when these candidates will clear, it can take you the toll. How many candidates are going to wait for an indefinite period of time to take a role within your organization when they can go to your Googles, your Amazons doing different things, but starting immediately? And also prescriptive hiring. So in the RFP process, the shalls and musts that come in there for key personnel, for everything that you do, give a very rigid view of what must be done. And oftentimes, the skills that are needed for those staff members, you have little control to be able to present a compliant candidate. So you are really limited by what the government views is that driver there. So again, this begs the question: where are we seeing these breakdowns? Again, the hiring process is truly delayed by everything that can hurt your ability to keep a pipeline open. Even if you start bidding on a contract, the time between bid and award can lead to somebody needing to find that new role. Looking for stable work as opposed to waiting and waiting and waiting, you're oftentimes recruiting against a clock. And even at times, even recruiting against a different contract that's awarded by the same agency for those candidates that might be able to award those contracts faster. Mismatched skills. So, again, with the bids, we see contractors providing their best guess on how to solve problems. But unless you're an incumbent or have some of that knowledge, you're making a best guess about what skills are needed to do that. If you're awarded a contract and realize you're missing key skills, it's not always the easiest thing to do to be able to make mods to add positions, to adjust on the fly. So finding candidates who can be knowledgeable about a lot of areas. For those of you who understand Agile, it's sort of the idea of a T-shaped candidate, somebody who is broad across many topics and very deep in one, becomes some of the most critical hires your organization can have. And then lastly, again, the idea of the rigid job criteria. Um, you know, being told the exact skills that you need to hire for, being told the exact certifications you need to hire for, and you can't bring them on unless they have it. But what's even worse is if an employee leaves and you need to find somebody who is equal or better, which is often the language the government uses when it comes to replacing key personnel. You really are trying to find the idea of a purple squirrel and needing to find somebody who's even a deeper shade of purple if you have to replace them. So things become a massive challenge and can really bog down everything that you are trying to do to find those new candidates. So what do we need to do for that? We need to create talent pipelines in advance. So the idea of proactive recruiting and waiting. So instead of waiting for a contract win to start hiring, build a bench of qualified candidates. We used to always, at the end of every busy season, at the end of every fiscal year, look at the necessary skills that we bid on the last year and what we anticipate coming up for the next fiscal year, so we could really start planning and prepping to make sure that we had the right folks ready to go as soon as those contracts were awarded. We would keep them warm, we would do all those things that a good recruiter should be able to do, but we knew in advance what we were looking for and how to drive that forward. Build candidate pools, keeping in touch with them through regular check-ins, going to industry events, maintaining relationships with talent who can help you at any point within your contract's lifecycle with the RFPs, helping them and also making it worth their while. Folks aren't going to want to keep getting messages from you saying, hey, we know things are coming, please be patient. Give them a reason. Give them a reason to want to stay engaged with your organization. streamlining the interview and selection process. I know that a lot of recruiters, when you've got RFPs and trying to find key personnel, it's sort of like your hair's on fire. Just find the first person that you can get who can do that. But building structured interviews, building virtual interviews, all of these things to help make sure that you're getting consistent interviewing processes along the way can speed up the decision making. So you're comparing apples to apples across the entire recruiting period. Utilizing employee referrals. These aren't key. Employees often know folks who are similar to them with skills and clearances. And frankly, you're going to want to work with people that they know and trust. Offering these incentives can really speed up the ability and get you a higher quality of hires because, again, your employees aren't going to want to let you down as an organization. Improving the candidate experience. So really faster communication. Don't leave folks waiting because that's where people drop off and expect that, my resume went into a void and I'm never going to hear from the organization again. Set clear expectations on hiring delays. I often, when we would have proposals in sort selection and waiting for everything to come, would be almost weekly reaching out to candidates to let them know what we understand, if there's new updates, if there's new information, even if there are new opportunities for them that might fit their same skill set that we're also recruiting for. Next, start looking into AI. So the idea of predictive analytics in recruiting is really starting to take shape. It is the idea of really using the data that you have of successful candidates, of successful hires, to predict success going forward. This can really help determine which folks are going to perform the best for your organization. It can reduce the hiring bias that is there because you're using data. It can reduce the time to hire. It can help you forecast attraction and retention. So knowing if somebody is more likely to leave your organization because they have a longer commute, that lets you know that they may not be a good fit for this potential position. Aligning the talent with future contracts. So predicting talent gaps, understanding where you're going to have needs down the road, and understanding what your current staff can do. All of these things can speed up the ability to get the right candidates in at the right time. Focus on the key metrics that come out of this data. So the candidate quality and can really help understand the likelihood of somebody to be a success in your organization through performance, through education, even potentially using some assessments. Time to fill, cost to hire, all of these things can help you using your data and other tools to really help ride forward and know who it is that you are bringing in and whether or not they're going to be successful. And then lastly, really starting to look at redefining the job requirements. So moving away from the lengthy experience and the employee must have 10 to 15 years experience in X, Y, and Z to really emphasize the skills. So focus on the specific skills, the competencies that you are looking to bring into your organization. Experience is important, but years alone do not always guarantee that expertise. A lot of times, even again with the key personnel requirements, you can replace years of experience in different areas for education and vice versa. So you can tailor that to really bring in folks who have the necessary skills that you need. Also, you really need to parse out in all of your job descriptions and everything that you're looking for the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. Having lists and lists and lists and lists of all of the necessary skills and requirements and everything that you need to have makes it difficult to have people see themselves in your role. A job posting is really a marketing tool for folks to see themselves in your organization. Yes, you need to make sure that they meet all the qualifications that you need to be successful, but you don't need to list all 40,000 requirements that may come into that play there. Tailoring the job descriptions to the specific contracts, making sure that you are getting folks, if it's a niche area of a certain agency, make sure that people understand that in the job posting. You're going to be able to have them understand what it is that they're going into. If it's a certain aspect of DHS, some folks may not want to work in that aspect. So being able to clearly define that really helps staff understand what it is they're signing up for. Emphasizing the idea of career development in your postings, finding ways to really leverage all of these things to make it for both a marketing tool as well as finding the right candidates. Moving into onboarding. So now we've found the right folks, they've found you. Now we're bringing them in onto your contract. So again, where do we see the uniqueness of GovCon? So again, you're talking about an industry where you've got two sort of types of organizations that you're trying to bring people into. First is your overall organization. So, you are an employee of X company. You've got mission, vision, and values that you need to have an employee understand. You've got onboarding paperwork that your employee needs to understand. And then you need to bring them into contract, which has got its own set of vision and values and all of these things that tie into the mission driven role that they're being brought into. Um, Other issues with that is again the hurdles of bringing folks in with clearances and all of those things that can really bog down and start to have folks become disinterested in onboarding with your organization. Delays in access. So, you may be able to get somebody a computer for your company, but then you're waiting on GFE, which can slow things down. So there are all sorts of ways that you're starting to run into all of these things. Contract dependent job stability. So again, a lot of organizations don't know what they want to do at the end of the contract. Do you look to keep them on? Do you look to keep your staff together? Do you look to move them to new contracts? Do you look to do all of these things, but not being able to express this to your onboarding staff to know that, we take care of our staff, we help develop them, we help make sure that they've got those new skills to be able to move and advance, can leave folks with a sour taste in their mouth. And then lastly, again, serving that secondary client location and the sort of siloed effect of folks who really get bogged down. And we at Ambit had a very large contract at NOAA. We had folks who felt like they were NOAA employees as opposed to Ambit employees because they were so embedded in the organization of the contract that they didn't always get to see the way to pull out and see that they were a part of a larger organization. So, again, some of the breakdowns I just touched on, but a lack of clarity around job expectations and role integration is a huge piece that sets people up for failure when they come to day one. Finding ways to make sure that an employee knows what it is they were brought into, what their responsibilities are, and how they're going to be adjudicated on that is truly a problem that a lot of folks have in onboarding, not just GovCon, but as you're bringing somebody onto a contract and letting them know that, this is what we hired you for, and this is what we expect of you, both on your contract and as a citizen of our company, really becomes a need to start setting that up to ensure that you don't lose folks to the idea of I am, an employee of this agency or department. Really not conveying your organization's mission, vision, and value can leave employees feeling disconnected. And again, folks will tend to feel more comfortable in the area that fits with them more. So the more that you can talk about our mission and vision and values and culture can help people feel at ease within your organization before they move into the client-based mission and vision there. And then lastly, a failure to set clear metrics. Setting up employees for that first 30, 60, 90 without these milestones, it can leave folks sort of wondering, am I doing what I need to do? Am I getting what I need? Am I getting everything that I can do to be effective within the organization? I do want to add one other breakdown that we often see is sort of inadequate training on specific systems. So, I know GovCon and government especially uses some outdated systems. I remember often hiring folks who had COBOL and Cobalt experience that was invented in the late 50s and is still really only used in government, in airlines, and retail. So finding folks who can handle these types of systems and tools also is an important piece of being able to drive folks into your organization and feel like they can really make a difference in the change. So then, with the breakdowns and the uniqueness, how do we drive this forward? Again, 30, 60, 90-day plans. This really provides that roadmap for your employees to understand the expectations, feel supported, and to be able to contribute quickly. So typically, I like to break it into this sort of idea for 30 days. It's really an introduction to the company's mission, vision, values, structure, the job specific training they need to be successful. 60 days is really starting to get that deeper immersion into the role, maybe with some mentorship and some feedback, which I'll touch on in a second, and really starting to develop those goals for them to know how to be successful in the organization. And then lastly, doing an assessment within that first 90 days, integration with the team and alignment with the organizational goals. It's really that first chance to say, hey, you've been here long enough. How are we doing? How are you doing as an employee of our organization? I truly believe in idea of mentorship and buddy programs. These are a great way to ensure that your new hires are connected with colleagues who can help drive them through the organization. Every organization has got its nuances. Every organization has its own unique issues and things that arise. And so this idea of a buddy system or a mentorship program can really help beyond that formal training that you hopefully have your HR department doing. This also helps create a stronger social connection and integration to your organization. Um, Again, you can do it in one of two ways. Certainly, you can do it through a mentor program, which is at times a more senior member of the organization who is providing guidance and feedback. Um, or through a buddy system, which is much more of a peer level, and they can help with the sort of day-to-day tasks and the culture and the informal processes that exist there. These really help boost job satisfaction, reduce turnover, and really help solidify the onboarding experience so it's a holistic idea of the organization. Um, Lastly, feedback. I cannot stress this enough. Organizations do not do enough to make sure that they're able to course correct early, addressing challenges with performance, addressing challenges with needs that an employee may need on the organization. This is key. Ask your employees who are just brought into the organization, what else do they need to be effective? What else can they do? What else can you as an organization do to help them feel settled? And make sure it's two-way feedback. You need to be able to provide them updates in terms of how they're performing and driving forward. Employee development, I'm going to start speaking through some of these because I know I want to make sure we've got enough time for questions. Some of the unique parts are really this skills requirements here that can take folks away from being able to bill and all of those things. In a lot of industries, there's less of a concern about bringing folks in for training and development because they just slide off of their regular work for a day. But in GovCon, if somebody's not billing, they're not making your organization money. Certainly the project centric work environment. So again, folks are on project base, and so they feel like they do you need to get deeper in the project that you're working on, or are there long-term skill growth that you can handle to help develop your employees, and then limited career pathing. And again, we see this all the time that organizations don't have a plan for what happens when a contract ends. So, due to the contract-driven nature, we don't have a clear progression of how somebody moves from analyst all the way through to program manager, project manager, and all of that. So finding that way to certainly drive forward career paths is key. So the breakdowns, focusing on the short-term contract needs over long-term growth. Again, employees are struggling with when I need to get more training and development. Do I focus on what the contract is going to need in the next 2 to 3 years if we're at the beginning parts of a contract? Or is it really that I want to go from an analyst into being the best IT SME I can be, and these are the things that I need to do? So trying to find ways to not just limit your employees' growth to the current project is a huge way to help drive folks out of the organization if they feel like there's nowhere to go. Lack of investment in emerging technology, finding ways to stay current, finding ways to close those skill gaps. AI is the massive talk of any industry that you're going to go to. Finding ways to close the gaps that are going to be needed to stay ahead of what's coming from new proposals, new ways is going to make it so your staff is able to be effective today and down the road for that next bid. And then lastly, poor leadership training or not allowing for the idea of just a subject matter expert. So not having ways to develop your future leaders leads folks who feel like they sort of hit a point where they can't move forward. Not being able to bring in folks who have that leadership and who have that succession planning to your organization is going to lead folks to exit. Or at the same time, forcing all of your high performers into leadership roles. Not everybody is cut out for leadership. So finding ways to have somebody who wants to be a true on subject matter expert and be the best darn subject matter expert that they can be is another route that folks need to certainly drive to understand is a place where you're going to lose staff if you force everybody into truly being in that management role. So how do we solve these challenges? Continuous learning programs really focusing on critical areas like cybersecurity, AI, and other technologies that are going to be critical. Having your team go out and look and survey what's coming from the agencies that you support to be able to grow them effectively is going to help put your teams on structured learning paths that keep them updated and ready for that next move. Create project agnostic development plans. Understand who your high performers are, understand where they want to go within your organization, talk to them, understand their goals, and start building plans that are potentially outside of just the contract that they're on, and really starting to focus on the long-term career growth. Employees want to feel like they can be at an organization for a while. You do still see some now of the newer generations coming through that will suck up all of the information that they can and suck up all of the skills that they can get. And when they don't have that ability anymore, they're going to leave. And so you're going to lose somebody who you may have invested a lot of training and development dollars into because they don't have that place for finding that long-term value. And then, again, I talked about the mentorship program when you onboarded folks. Keep that going. Find ways to mentor and have a mentor drive you forward who can help you understand how and what sort of things you need to do and your high potential employees need to do to be effective and really move into that next phase. Helping them guide through their career growths within GovCon is a critical piece. Having a mentorship program that can truly build that next generation of leaders is one of those critical separators for the folks who are super successful and the folks who are unable to sort of maintain that leadership level and change and handle the long-term changes within an organization as they grow. So moving into retention. So again, what makes us unique is, again, the contract-driven employment cycles. Project-based, if somebody drops off contract, what do you do? I have been in and supported organizations that would just, as soon as the contract is over, don't even worry about it. All that staff is out on the street, typically picked up by the new contract awardee. But if you find ways and continue to identify the employees who are nearing that cliff and start designing opportunities for them, you're going to be able to have employees who feel supported and who feel that you can have more stable opportunities, and this can lower a lot of the idea of the turnover that we see when it comes to the ends of contracts and all of that. The competitive landscape, GovCon, it is truly just a mishmash of folks who are trying to stay in GovCon, who are trying to stay in industry, and you lose individuals with those private sector roles and the companies that are offering the more growth, the more opportunities, and the flexibility that you may not be able to do. And then lastly, again, the work environments that your staff are in don't necessarily equate to the work environment that your organization espouses. So again, an employee in a an agency that doesn't sort of have that same type of feel as your organization can lead folks to being frustrated and leaving because they're not in the same type of environment that they were signing up for when they came to work for you. Other places you're going to see breakdowns, again, the lack of career growth when folks don't see a place for them long term, if folks don't understand that they can be here and grow within your organization, don't have that mobility, whether it's the individual track or the leadership track, folks will leave. I promise you, they will leave. They will go find where they can advance and feel like they take that step in the up the career ladder, across the career ladder, wherever it is that helps them hit their goals personally. Burnout. Burnout is the killer of a lot of retention means. GovCon is very much a go, 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 go. You ask a lot of your staff who are delivering on contracts daily to then turn around and write proposals. And so folks get burnt out and just leave. Whether or not they're high performers or otherwise, you're going to see folks who just cannot and do not want to handle the rigors and the grind of doing 40, 70-hour weeks for the long-term period with all of these high-pressure contract environments that they're in, trying to maintain CPARs, trying to maintain all of those things that are able to have that contract stay there. And then lastly, a disconnect between contributions and recognition. We don't do a great job in GovCon of really recognizing individual effort. Whether that's through spot bonuses, whether that's through sharing benefits of helping to keep contracts, winning contracts, bids, and all of that. We need to find ways to drive recognition forward because without that, you're going to have reduced motivation, reduced engagement, and folks again are going to go where they feel valued and rewarded. So, I feel like I've hit on some of these, but again, finding those career development programs, finding ways to show your employees where they have that long-term success, how they can get cross-functional training, how they can apply their skills across multiple contracts, finding ways to have people on different contracts so they're exposed to new and different ideas, all can help drive that, all while identifying what their career growth opportunities are for them within the organization. Introducing flexibility and well-being programs, find ways to reduce that pressure. You can't go to the same 7 employees to handle all of the tight deadlines for these RFPs. Look to find ways to reward staff after they have done their billable work and then done proposal work to get a little bit of a break. Find ways to do workload management. You see this in things like the NBA where, you got to be on every night. Find ways to alleviate some of that overlap and that always going and always having to be on sort of feeling. And then lastly, developing recognition reward systems. Find both those formal awards, bonuses, performance-based incentives, and informal recognition. Some people just want to be recognized on a call that they did a good job. But you need to do a combination of both. So, finding ways to certainly bring both of those together, whether it's a quarterly recognition program, whether it's, bonus programs, find what works for your organization and your culture and use that to make sure you are recognizing the people who are helping to continue keeping your organization afloat with winning work, with maintaining those engagements and all of those things that are there. So we're now into the last aspect of the life cycle, offboarding. The places that we see issues here is the cyclical nature of government contracting. What do you do when a contract ends? Are you a butts and seats organization where you're going to bring people in and then get rid of them? Or are you going to have that reputation for really helping your employees to place them? The idea that firms have bench staff and folks are leaving involuntarily despite being high performers is something that you don't want to have your organization associated with. You don't also see that in other fields. And you also see a lot of information walking out the door when your employee leaves. But because of all of the connections, you might see a whole contract ostensibly walk out the door when an employee leaves. So trying to find ways to lessen that single point of failure with contract changes, trying to maintain those relationships with your former employees, because again, everything cycles back, and it happens a lot in GovCon. I have friends who have left companies and come back only after getting stronger and more skills, and came back because they knew what they were getting into. So the breakdowns, this loss of institutional knowledge, it truly is a difficult way to handle project continuity when you have folks who leave, when you have folks who walk out the door who are the gatekeepers of your contacts at the contract level, who are walking out the door, who are losing that information. You're putting your organization at a disadvantage. Finding ways to handle a smooth transition and a handoff of that. Additionally, the lack of exit interviews. A lot of organizations that I know, especially the smaller ones, don't ask their employees why they're leaving. Most employees, as long as it's a voluntary termination, are going to share with you the good, bad, and the ugly of what your organization can do. This helps tremendously. This is data to help you fix what's going on now. Most folks are going to be as open and honest and transparent as they're walking out the door as you're ever going to get them. Coupling that with things like stay interviews. So if somebody is looking to leave and you find ways to make them stay to remain at the organization, figure out why. And then lastly, competition. We see in GovCon all the time folks leaving, taking pricing schedules, taking the information, and all of these things that make it so their next company can go after the work that they were just on. The more that organizations can truly drive a way to maintain this competition and not losing your organizational secrets, the better off you are to be able to still compete. So what do we need to do here? Again, implementing these structured knowledge transfers, building the exit interviews. We're able to get this information and use it efficiently and effectively. Talk to your leaders about what you're hearing in these exit interviews and make changes to that. Really working through these non-disclosure agreements. So the NLRB policy might be back and forth soon. You don't know, but you can still control what walks out your door. Draft agreements that are specific to the role in which the employee is doing it. If it's BD, prevent them from working on the same programs they were supporting you on and list them. Make it as specific as possible. And that's the difference between the policy that we saw that outlawed non-disclosure, non-compete agreements and what you can do. Also making sure that you're keeping things like pricing and solutions in-house. If you don't think your employees are sending proposals, pricing, et cetera, to personal accounts, I guarantee you they are. You just don't want it to come back to haunt you. And then lastly, building alumni networks. Again, boomerang employees happen all the time. The more that you can actually support and maintain those individuals and building that connection to folks who have left your organization on good standing helps you in the long run. These folks know you, trust you, potentially loved the culture that they were in and left for development or other reasons. They can come back stronger into your organization with a shorter ramp up time and truly be those good stewards of your organizational culture. I know I just threw a lot of information at you. I see there are questions in the chat, which I will get to in 1 second. But if there are other questions on the line, feel free to come off and I'll peruse the questions that are there. But I'm happy to chat. Here's all my contact information. The QR code will take you to a calendar link for my calendar if you'd like to schedule something with me. But happy to take questions live as I look at the chat. Ruth had asked about the private sector training pathways to public service jobs. Absolutely. The more that we're able to bring folks in from the public sector who have gotten through some of these trainings and some of frankly, the more bleeding edge technologies and things like that, the better off we are to be able to get them into government and hopefully affect outside things. It truly does help deliver a better product with folks who are able to both understand what's out there and what's coming with what's currently here with government. Trend towards cohort groups being hired in the pipeline to fill bench of technical staff. Yep, bring in cohorts, bring in to identify staff who can step in is a great way to help mitigate some of those losses that may be there. I truly believe that's a great way to help, fill that technical staff that's there. Beth Reed asked about tip suggestions to launch a successful buddy system. Don't have a whole lot that I can give you here. I know we're running low on time, but if you want to reach out to me, Beth, I'm happy to give you some ideas. I've implemented some both in private industry and attempted some in GovCon as well. Considering stay interviews. So any other questions that anyone has, or else I will happily turn it back over to Lindsay.
How can smaller contractors compete with larger firms when it comes to recruiting top talent for government contracts?
So with that, it truly is finding ways to sort of outsmart the ability there. So finding ways to outcompete them. Smaller government contractors are much more nimble. They're able to do changes quicker. They're able to make implementation and changes on process and all of these things on the fly. So the more that they're able to, truly go after ways to support their staff better, they can put in, growth patterns and all of these things in a much faster way. So they have that leg up there.
Okay, sounds good. How can government contractors balance the need for immediate productivity with the long-term development of their employees?
So a lot of this goes back to truly, finding ways to get somebody onto the ground, run up to speed as quickly as they can on the contract, but at the same time, starting to look at where this employee can fit long term. The best thing you can do is not have somebody sit on a contract for years and years and years on end, because that really has them feel embedded into the agency that they're supporting. So the more that you're able to people across matrix them, drive them to different areas of your organization, the better off you are, and certainly able to have them move forward and be able to be a long-term resource for your organization.
Okay, understood. And looking ahead, what trends do you see in government contracting that could further impact the employee life cycle?
Yeah. Again, we're still seeing delays in everything. The pandemic threw GovCon still in a loop. I know when my old company was acquired, there were still contracts that we were waiting on that were not released by the time we were sold that had supposed to come out in the beginning part of 22. So, until we're able to catch that up, it's going to continue to be a slowdown. The big event that's happening in less than a month is going to play a large impact on GovCon, and especially how and what GovCon is going to do. So the election, government contracting is not going away, but the reliance on and potentially the increase in government contracting funding is going to be a large piece of what comes out of whoever wins the election.
So let's look at what's coming up next. Our Government Contractor Chat complimentary Zoom webinar series will be the third Wednesday of each month, excluding holidays, from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday, November 20th, we will have Eileen Kent, Federal Sales Guide and President of Custom Keynotes, presenting To Bid or Not to Bid. That is the $64,000 question. We will be taking the month of December off, resuming our regular schedule in January. Wednesday, January 15th, we will have Diane Menser, Business Operations and COO Advisor at Diane Integrates, presenting Want Top Past Performance Scores Start Today. To register for these webinars, you can scan the QR code on the screen now. Thank you for your time today. We'll see you in November.